Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged. And as Republicans in Washington struggle to find a way to repeal Obamacare without denying coverage to millions of Americans, states are left to wonder what comes next. Now, 31 states, including Arizona, expanded Medicaid coverage under the Affordable Care Act. But if it is repealed, the money to support it goes away, putting new pressure on states and patients alike. And joining us now is Christina Corieri, Senior Policy Advisor to Governor Doug Ducey. And I want to thank you very much for joining us. And we all know that your boss is not a fan of Obamacare, but what does he want to see happen next?
Well, Governor Ducey wants to see Obamacare repealed and replaced. I mean, he's said repeatedly that Arizona is ground zero for why the Affordable Care Act simply isn't working for patients. We've seen a robust insurance market where we had dozens of competitors selling prior to the implementation of the exchanges go down to one insurer on each exchange in 14 or 15 counties. We've seen increases of 116% in premiums. We've seen deductibles go all the way up to $14,000, and we've seen thousands of people lose their coverage.
Sure, and that's criticizing the current program right now. What does the governor advocating for specifically, and what's it mean to our viewers out there watching?
So the governor is advocating for repeal and replace. He wants that to happen in an expeditious manner, but in a thorough and thoughtful manner that includes input from consumers, from doctors, and importantly from states. And he doesn't want to see the rug pulled out from anyone. We want it to be patient-centered, free market-centered, that doesn't stifle innovation but embraces it.
But what about specifics, though? The repeal part is pretty easy. What's the replace side? What would he like to see replace it with? Specifics.
Well, I think you have to look at different areas, right? So we want the essential health benefits to go away and return benefit mandates to the states. Those are things that just drive up the cost for everybody and put you into a one-size-fits-all. We want to see the taxes repealed. When you talk about a health insurance tax, people might assume that this is going to be paid by the insurance company, but what's going to happen is it's going to be built into your bill. So those are direct costs. We want to see, again, innovation be able to flourish, and that means repealing some of the restrictions on physician-owned hospitals or alternatives to traditional insurance be allowed to flourish.
And again, it's obvious, Governor Ducey, critic of Obamacare, but explain to our viewers when the state under Governor Brewer expanded Medicaid coverage under the ACA. How many Arizonans got more coverage as a result of that move?
Well, so we had about 70,000 people that were still on from the freeze, but if you want to look at the total that are covered now in the expansion categories, it's about 400,000 people. And
does the feds pick up the tab for all of them?
No, in most states they picked up 100% because Arizona had done some early expansions before. We have a share that some other states don't have, and that is covered through a provider assessment.
Now, if Congress does repeal the Obamacare, the ACA, what happens to those people that got coverage under the expansion of access or Medicaid?
Well, that depends on what the replacement is, and so that's what we're focusing on. I think that Congress wants to get more budget control over the expanding budget piece that is Medicaid, and we think that reforms to Medicaid are actually long overdue. We want to build on some of the successful waivers that we've had, so we are open to financing changes as long as they also come with flexibilities and as long as we're able to protect the people that are in the system now and not pull the rug out from under them.
What if there wasn't a replacement? What if it was just a repeal? I mean, what happens to people on access right now?
Well, I think that's a hypothetical that's incredibly unlikely. I have not heard one serious person, whether it's in a governor's office, in Congress, or in the White House, advocate repeal in isolation. So
we still haven't heard any details on what the replace is, and it puts the governor in a tough spot. He's waiting just like everybody else, and we don't know what's going to happen.
But it's a good thing that they are taking their time to ask these questions. So when the Affordable Care Act passed in 2010, you had no engagement with our governors. They passed this in the middle of the night. You had a speaker who said they needed to pass it to find out what was in it. So what they're doing right now is actually engaging with the governors. You see Leader McCarthy's office sending out questions, and governors, especially our governor, sending very substantive responses to that. So you've seen outlines from Secretary Price when he was in Congress on what he would do. You've seen an outline of Paul Ryan's Better Way. So those plans are going to come together in the coming weeks and months.
In that engagement, then, the back and forth, what is the governor telling them?
Well, you're welcome to read it. We'd be happy to provide it to you.
I would love to see that.
There's suggestions from everything from the exchange and how you can bring prices down to individuals, how we can protect people's employer-based coverage, and new flexibilities that will bend the cost curve on Medicaid.
So who would be the most likely under some of these scenarios to lose coverage if it's just changed? Let's say it just goes back to the old system.
Well, again, it's not going to go back to the old system. There is nobody who is advocating that. So the goal, I think, for everybody is to make sure that everybody has access to affordable health care.
All right. And then back in 2011, I know the state froze enrollment in the program and made several cuts, especially affecting adults who did not have children. Now, that sparked a lot of different protests out there. What is your office hearing now about the potential to replace Obamacare? Because we're starting to see like little pockets of protests pop up all over the country, including here in Arizona now.
Yeah, you know, the governor has been engaged on this issue, very thoughtfully engaged, providing real suggestions. And I think in our conversations with the healthcare community, that has really given them a lot of hope that he takes this very seriously and is really looking for substantive solutions and not politics.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the idea some Republicans have floated block grants to convert Medicaid money into these block grants. What does that exactly mean for people who don't know?
So I think there's two different things. They're talking about block grants versus per capita caps. So a block grant is you get X amount of dollars and you need to deal with that. That transfers all the risk. You see that in a TANF, a cash assistance way. The problems with block grants are they're not very flexible when you have economic situations that ebb and flow, recessions versus healthy economies. Per capita cap says this is how much you're going to get for each type of person, so a child, an adult, a disabled person, or an elderly person. Now that allows you to work with a changing economy. As the recession grows, you will get more money as more people enroll. We have concerns about a pure block grant. We think that there are ways to make a per capita cap work.
I was going to say, is the block grant something that the Governor Ducey thinks is the best solution, and if not, what would it be?
The governor prefers a per capita cap, and right now we're focused on making sure if that's how it if that's the direction we're moving in, that there is an equitable formula, so states that are more efficient and lower cost are not punished, and higher cost states are not rewarded.
So if we did repeal this and the state had to, the federal government did repeal this and the state had to pony up more money for health care coverage, what would happen to education money?
Well, you know, that's a discussion that will happen at the legislature. What I can tell you are the three main pieces of the budget are education and Medicaid are the two top pieces alone. So as we look at the solutions and the plans that are coming forward, we're going to be evaluating what the budget impact would be on Arizona, and we are going to share that with our congressional delegation and congressional leaders.
Is that kind of something that the governor is really concerned about at this point, that the state is going to have to pony up more money for health care?
Well, look, I think whenever you get involved with a federal program, there's always a risk that the feds are going to change the rules and stick you with the bill. So we are going to be evaluating that as it moves along.
All right, well, thanks a lot. That's all the time we have right now for this segment. We're going to have to take a quick break, but we have lots more here to come up on Politics Unplugged. Up next, state lawmakers are looking at a bill that means you might need to read your insurance policy a lot more closely. We'll find out what that declarations page may not tell the whole story.
It seems that there's a disconnect there. If the information coming from those leaks is real, then how can the stories be
fake?
The
reporting is fake.
After losing his national security advisor, President Donald Trump goes on the attack, and it's a familiar adversary. Still ahead, the president and the press.
Parenting can be tough. Throughout their lives, kids can face a variety of problems. The Boys Town National Hotline can help you put the pieces back together. The Boys Town National Hotline, keeping your family safe, strong, and together. Call 800-448-3000 or visit boystown.org/parenting.
We want to make this our biggest President's Day ever. Take advantage of special deals on our amazing in-stock selection of living room, bedroom, and dining room collections. Our outstanding prices, styles, and selection are what American Furniture Warehouse is all about. Not to mention our no-pressure sales team, who are ready to help you create the home of your dreams. This President's Day, come to American Furniture Warehouse, where we always have the lowest prices anywhere, anytime.
When it comes to pain, don't wait. Catalyst Pain Solutions knows waiting to treat pain can make things go from bad to worse. Our physicians work with you to define your level of discomfort, to dial that pain down to 0 for good. We use the most innovative pain treatment and non-medicated pain elimination procedures to eliminate your constant or recurring pain and return you to life with 0 pain, 0 medication. Don't wait to live life pain-free. Call or visit us online today.
Something new has arrived. Uniquely designed for the driven. Introducing the first ever Infiniti QX30 crossover. Lease the first ever all-wheel drive Infiniti QX30 for $299 a month. Visit your local Infiniti retailer.
Home is where your story begins. Make your once upon a time a reality with home loan solutions from Desert Schools. Cozy up to competitive rates, a free appraisal, and a credit towards closing costs. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or moving up, Desert Schools can guide you through everything from finding that special home to getting the mortgage that's right for you. And that's an ending everyone can be happy with.
Well, it's the first thing many of us look at when we get a car or home insurance, the declarations page. But if one bill makes it through the Arizona legislature, you might want to read even further. That bill could mean that what you see up front may not be what you really bought. And I'm Dennis Welch, and welcome back to Politics Unplugged. And to talk about that bill is Representative Isela Blanc. And I want to thank you very much for joining us here. Now, obviously, you are opposed to this bill. Tell us a little bit about why you're opposing this bill.
Thank you so much for having me, first of all. And the reason I'm opposed is, first of all, consumers did not request this bill. And I'm really concerned that this is going to erode consumer confidence.
Well, you know, isn't the whole thing, a little background on this bill is that basically what you see up front on that front page may not be necessarily what you end up paying or what you owe, because if there's different amounts it's within the contract that you sign, then that is what you're obligated to pay, correct?
Yeah, so, you know, to your point, I'm really concerned because as a consumer of both home, health, and auto insurance, I kind of rely on the declaration page, and I have the ability to, of course, read the entire contract. Sometimes it could be 10, 30, 40, or even more pages. I am not a contract lawyer, and I do believe that most Arizonans are also not contract lawyers, and we kind of do rely on both the summary page and our relationship with our insurance agents.
But what about the idea like personal responsibility? If you go out and you buy something, shouldn't you be reading the contract before you put your name on the dotted line?
You know, absolutely, and like I said, most Arizonans are like myself. We rely on that declaration page. We all have the responsibility to certainly read the contract, but most of us are not contract lawyers. That's a reality, and we are going to start eroding consumer confidence, and I'm concerned of also consumer abuse.
Now, Republican Representative David Livingston is the sponsor of this bill. Now, he could not make it here. What are you hearing from him as to why this bill isn't even necessary?
Well, I thought it was interesting because on the floor, you know, I did ask him, and as I mentioned earlier in the program, consumers did not request this bill. The people that requested the bill were insurance agents.
And why do you? And have you talked to these insurance agents, and have they told you why they think this bill is needed?
Yeah, I certainly have not talked to them, but I know Representative Livingston certainly has had a conversation, and he certainly stated that on the floor that's really what's driving this bill.
Now, is this a problem? I mean, do we see this a lot? I mean, how often is something on a declaration page different from what's inside the contract?
Well, I think, you know, I don't know if it's a problem, but I'm going to say that I, like most consumers, rely on that 3-page summary. We don't have the lawyer degree to go through the entire contract, and so I'm just going to continue to say that this is really going to erode consumer confidence, but more importantly, I'm concerned about potential consumer abuse, because it could lead up to that.
Okay, and what's the support like right now for down at the legislature amongst Democrats, Republicans? Is it moving?
Well, it certainly moved. You know, I think it was a party line vote, so it made it past the House. Yeah.
Okay,
We'll see what happens at the Senate.
explain there's another component of this bill that deals with Spanish translation. Now, you're really concerned about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think part of that conversation is very divisive language by including as if, it's divisive language. I'll just stay at that. It's very divisive language, and that's what concerns me.
Explain a little bit more about what you mean divisive language.
So, the focus seems to be solely on contracts that are maybe Spanish or other language and then translated into English, therefore making the English contract the legitimate contract. But at the end of the day, I say divisive because this is going to impact everyone, all consumers, not just English or other language speakers other than English. It impacts all of us. So that's why I say it's divisive.
Okay. Well, I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit too and to ask you about another issue on the national stage is playing out here in Phoenix. The sanctuary city debate happened in City Hall in Phoenix last week. What did you make of all of this?
So for me, it's, part of my personal story is I came to the U.S. when I was 7. For a time, I was undocumented, living in the shadows. And when I was a kid, the church that I attended was a quote-unquote sanctuary church. What that meant to me was a place where I knew I was protected and safe. So the conversation around sanctuary cities is really about letting people who are living in the shadows right now and really feeling a pressure to feel safe in the cities and the communities they live in. I have to tell you, I was a part of a conversation with many folks, undocumented, but they're human beings, just like you and I was struck because the level of fear, anxiety, depression, and sadness that they feel is impacting the adults, but then that trickles down to their children, and that really impacts our community overall.
So do you think Phoenix should be a sanctuary city?
I think the city of Phoenix needs to acknowledge and recognize that people want to know that they can feel safe and protected in the communities that they live in. And here's the bottom line.
Well, do you think that's the case right now? That kind of implies that maybe they're not.
Absolutely. It implies that they're not. Again, I had a conversation. Children are afraid that they're going to come home and their mom or their dad may not be there. Adults are afraid that, of what this could mean for their future, but not only their future, but the future of their children. And the reality is that, there's a lot of families that are mixed status. I actually got a phone call from an organization helping out a constituent who is a young woman with 2 young children. Her husband, again, this is a mixed status family, is in the process of potentially getting deported, and this is having a severe impact on her.
Are you at all pleased? Are you satisfied with the city's leadership on this issue, or where are you on that?
So I think that the city just needs to take a stand and let people know living in their communities, whether they're refugees, undocumented immigrants, again, these are human beings. The city needs to take a stand and let people know that they are safe and protected, because right now that's what they need to hear from their city leaders, that they're going to be safe in the communities that they live in and that they're going to be protected, and that's really the bottom line.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, but they're going to have to take another quick commercial break here right now. We have lots more to talk about here on Politics Unplugged. Phoenix City Council says no to becoming a sanctuary city, but their vote may not be the end of the story as the debate moves behind closed doors. And a new report says the government could use National Guard troops to help round up illegal immigrants. But the president says no way. Just ahead, what's behind the story of troops and deportations here on Politics Unplugged.
Dealing with the insurance company is like talking to a brick wall.
Call us the moment you've been in a wreck, and we'll hammer the insurance company to get you every dollar you deserve. In a wreck, you need a check? Call 977-1900.
The Scottsdale Arabian Horse Show invites you to experience the extraordinary beauty of the Arabian horse. But there's so much more for you to explore at the Scottsdale Arabian Horse Show. Bring the family to meet the world's most beautiful Arabian horses. Shop, eat, and have fun. There's so much to see and do, you'll have to come to the show more than one day. Buy your tickets through Ticketmaster or at the door at Westworld on the corner of Frank Lloyd Wright and 101.
This President's Day, get to Nissan now and save on a lineup with intelligent safety features and America's best truck warranty. Take on the everyday with 6 2017 IIHS top safety picks. It's clear why we're America's fastest growing auto brand. Now get President's Day offers like a low $199 per month lease on Rogue or get 0% financing for up to 72 months on Sentra.
Do you or a loved one have arthritis, pain, and stiffness in your knees or hips? If so, you may qualify for local research studies. You may receive payment which varies by study up to $1,000. No cost study-related care for the study duration. No cost to you. No health insurance or referrals needed. To see if you qualify, call 866-304-4556 today. That's 866-304-4556. Or visit badkneepain.com.
Shop all the latest styles at Living Space's President's Day event, where you'll find unbeatable deals for your entire home. Plus, pay no interest for 2 years on select purchases with your good credit, but only for a limited time at the Living Space's President's Day event.
On average, there are over 10 car accidents every minute in the U.S. If you've been hurt in a wreck, don't just be another number.
Pick up the phone and call us now. We'll get you every dollar you deserve.
Learn and grow is the way to go. Call 977-1900.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. It's now the time to talk it out with our partners from First Strategic. And with us today is Kurt Davis and Marcus Dellartino. And so let's start our discussion off with something that could really pit the states against the feds. And we're talking about the expansion of Obamacare. Do you think the repeal and replacement of replacement of Obamacare? I apologize for that. Do you think the governor's making the right moves on this?
Republicans have been messaging this for like 2 years, Dennis. How did it not work on you? I think the governor's obviously moving in the right direction. Look, your point, your question is what happens if you just repeal it? And I think she did a great job on pointing out that nobody is talking about just doing a repeal. We are going to have to do some replacement. And I think... yeah,
but for how many years have they been talking about doing this and they don't have a plan?
Yeah, I don't think. Listen, we were all critical, everybody on both sides of the aisle, of the administration who passed through ACA, and even their own members of Congress, like Nancy Pelosi, admitted they didn't read it. That's not the scenario you want again. People want real answers. That's going to take some time. And there's a lot of parties, insurance companies, doctors, people that are involved in this.
And you have to obviously deal with now people who are on Obamacare, and then that shift, and so that's not an overnight. So I think it's actually wise that they are taking their time.
But to your point, did you see the numbers that you guys put up on the screen? 1.4 million Arizonans are on access, and when I want to think about that for a second. About a quarter of Arizona's population is on government health care.
And nearly a million.
We've got a bigger problem here, folks.
Also, nearly a million, I believe, are on food stamps. But that's another topic for another show, I suppose. I want to move on now to the issue here that took up a lot of attention last week. The Phoenix City Council voted not to become a sanctuary city last week, ignoring that or voting down that citizens' petition.
They voted to not violate the law? I would hope that constitutionally elected officers would not vote to violate the law.
Yeah, now, I do want to get a little background on this. Now, we had some citizens on both sides of the issue speak, and in the end, it definitely was voted down. Now, it was pretty heated here. I want to show you a little bit of what they had to say during that meeting.
The other thing that I want you to understand what's occurring here in that motion says that we take this to executive session. Do you know what executive session is? It's a closed-door meeting. You'll never know what occurs in there.
Now, why are they doing this behind closed doors? Because from what I understand is they're going to go behind closed doors and discuss Senate Bill 1070 again and some of the provisions in that law. Why an executive session?
You know, I will tell you, I've noticed that the Phoenix City Council has been in executive session, using the tool of executive session a lot more frequently than they used to. I think it's a byproduct also of their politics on the council. It's certainly gotten a lot more fierce in recent years. You got to listen to this. I mean, how do people who have to set your garbage rates and make sure there's enough cops and firefighters on the street get so political at a city council meeting? But it's tearing the place apart. But these things are going into executive session, just as Sal said, to be talked about in closed doors and should be an open debate.
Now, we know that Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton was seen everywhere recently, and all over in different publications across the country, saying they were going to stand up to President Trump when it comes to immigration. Did he kind of set himself up for a situation like this?
Well, look, he's thinking about future office, so he's talking to the base. They're pushing back on the administration, if you're on the Democrat side of the aisle, is smart politics, and he's playing smart politics. At the end of the day, again, we have laws, and a city council has to decide whether it's going to obey our laws or not. And if they started saying we're not going to obey the law, that's a bigger story.
All right, let's stick with the issue of immigration here and talk a little bit about something that happened late in the week. Last week, the AP reporting that they received they obtained an 11-page memo from the Department of Homeland Security saying that they can mobilize up to 100,000 National Guard troops in 11 states throughout the country to round up suspected illegal immigrants. What do you make of the report so far?
Well, first of all, the president also was very clear that that is not on his. Nobody should be worrying about the National Guard heading out.
Well, However, Sean Spicer came out and he said it's very wrong. There's no effort right now to do that. But
however, any good Department of Homeland Security would, in looking at options, would be looking at that as an option. Good staff work is looking at all the tools and resources that may be available. So because somebody wrote it down, and my guess is, by the way, that memo or that idea has been floating around since the Homeland Security Department was formed in the Bush administration, and probably was talked about again in the Obama administration, because those are tools that may be necessary if you're dealing with large numbers in population.
Your reaction?
Yeah, listen, the president has said this isn't going to happen, number one. Number two is, I think the reality of this is not going to happen. I don't think the governors in those states are going to allow it to happen. But it did open the door for a lot of politics to start here. And I think one of Arizona's own Democratic members of Congress had a press conference, railing against this idea. That was obviously good for his politics. But at the end of the day, we're fighting over a policy that isn't going to happen.
Well, it is part of the problem here that it seems like we don't know where Mr. Trump really is here. Just looking up a few things here, he says he wants to repeal Obamacare, yet he's got no plan to do so. No concrete plan that we've seen. He says he wants to focus on deporting dangerous criminals, but as we saw, there was a mother here in Arizona that was deported after she went and voluntarily went to ICE for a check-in. I mean, what do you make of some of this stuff?
Let me skip ahead on this whole thing. The media is in a dysfunctional relationship with him. So why don't you guys, the media needs to start looking at him as their girlfriend and break up. Because that's what you do in a dysfunctional relationship. But this continual saga of every week there's something new with the Trump administration. You guys didn't even give him to 100 days. We're now doing an evaluation every day. And I think
I got to ask you here the final word on this, though. Is Trump, does he have to improve his relationship with the press, or is he winning by attacking the press?
I think we're in uncharted waters. And quite frankly, a lot of the national media in particular is beginning to look like a lot like paid activists as opposed to journalists. And if they continue down that path, their credibility is going to drop, and the more he rails on them, the better he's going to do.
Well,
we've got to get back to actual journalism.
Well, that is all the time we have tonight, but be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.